What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Star Wars Collecting and Hobbies. In this multi-part video, we will be talking about the top 100 plus Star Wars 6-inch Black Series figures. So I'm going to do this in multiple parts, and you'll see how that I get it done, because this is quite the undertaking, quite a huge task. This has been something that has been requested on the First Jedi podcast several times, and I can go ahead and start doing this by starting with the earlier additions to the line. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go year through year from 2013 to 2020 and pick from best to worst each of the Black Series figures or releases. Eventually, I will throw in all the releases, the exclusives, and everything. But in the first part, I'm going to do just the single box or store exclusives, not the online like Comic-Con exclusives. Unless there's not very many. Like, say, the first year, in year one, there's only one exclusive. That was the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, Boba Fett with Han Solo and Carbonite. So that will actually be included in this video, but I'm going to do it in a way where it's technically just the regular releases, but I'll also show you if they were to be included, where they will be. So technically I'm doing it both ways. So since this is going to be, there's been over 200 releases in the Black Series line between 2013 and 2020. But if you're talking about the regular figures, just the numbered versions of the regular single box figures, we have 143. And that is somewhat reasonable, something that I could do, and rank them in order from number 1 to number 143. So I am a completist, and I have pretty much all of them I've held or seen or had in my hands at one point or another, every release that I can think of. So at least in this way, these releases and the regular version releases. There might be a couple exclusives that I'd have to think about it that I haven't got yet, but as far as regular releases, I can do that for you. So we're gonna go ahead and kick this off. I am recording this technically on a video. I'm adding the pictures later on, so I'll try to get the pictures in sync with the figures that I'm talking about as best as I can, because I'm still learning as far as editing goes. Mainly because I'll do it from my phone. I used to have a computer that I used to do that on, but not anymore. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and start off at the bottom. In 19 I was like, I was going to say 1978. No, they weren't released in 78. That's when the classic line started. But in 2013, Hasbro has decided to go the way of modernizing Star Wars action figures, giving them super articulation, highly detailed sculpts to make them as movie accurate as possible, with the most poses that you can get. And at least it seems like in the first couple of years, they seem to have a multitude of accessories that you can use for each costume. You know, if they had, like, say, Han Solo in the first year in his line, he came with not just his regular belt and DL-44 blaster, but he also came with the Stormtrooper belt and Stormtrooper blaster and an extra pair of hands that are gloved when he's flying the Falcon. So you could basically kind of recreate any scene that he was in the regular movie, in the first movie, Star Wars, with that figure. And That's something they've kind of strayed away from nowadays. And now they're kind of like exclusive sometimes. You have to buy, say, like the Yavin ceremony, um, Luke Skywalker. One, technically, the deluxe release with all the extra accessories, technically they're saying it's based off the comic book, but he doesn't come with the medal. So you'd have to buy the regular release to get his medal that he wins at the end of, Star Wars, that Princess Leia puts around his neck for basically saving the rebellion and blowing up the Death Star. So the first couple of years where they were probably better off with accessories, and you got them with the regular releases. You didn't have to pay extra for them or buy multiple different figures to get the extra accessories. All right, so like I said, they started this line in 2013, partly because of the success of their Marvel Legends franchise. They decided that there was what they call a new spark needed. They decided to push this line, and because of the profits, probably push it to a more mainline, more mainstream, not just but they make more money off of them than they do the 3 3/4 super articulated black series, or also called the vintage collection. So they could make more money off of it. So that's what they want to do. They want to push this, and so far it's been very successful. They do make a lot more money off of these than they do the 3.75-inch super articulated figures. Actually, so much so they decided to get rid of the 3.75-inch line altogether as far as the basic figures go. All right, so let's go ahead and start this off. If we included the San Diego Comic-Con, the very first release in July of 2013, the San Diego Comic-Con Boba Fett with Han Solo in carbonite block. The carbonite block is non-articulated. There's no figure. It's just a solid piece of plastic with a little bit of paint on it. And it also has a stand that plugs into the back, so you can simulate when it's standing up against the wall or when it's floating, when they're pushing Han Solo into the Slave One vehicle, spaceship, when they're transporting him from Bespin. So when Luke Skywalker sees Boba Fett, he's pushing. It's kind of like basically levitating, in like a coffin, and it's like a coffin that levitates. But anyway, you get the drift. You've seen the movie, or you wouldn't be here. So let's go ahead and do it without that, because that was a very significant release, but that was the very first release. It was kind of a preview, and then within a week after Comic-Con, they started hitting stores. Their official release date was supposed to be August 1st. So let's kick it off with number 13. And coming in at number 13 is Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi from Revenge of the Sith. And the only reason he is the primary reason, I should say, that he is on the bottom of this list for the first year of Black Series, simply his head sculpt. His paint scheme is not up to par with the rest of the line. He's actually has silver, literally silver, like you would paint on a bumper on a Transformer figure or a car or something. He literally has silver paint on the sideburns above his ears, like it's supposed to simulate gray for his hair, which I don't even think he had in the movie. I'm not sure, but I don't remember, and I don't really see it. I've gone back and looked at the movie. I don't see silver in his hair at all, or even, I don't even think there's any gray. I'm not sure. But they were simulating, I guess, that this is the Obi-Wan Kenobi from Revenge of the Sith, not Attack of the Clones, not obviously episode 1. So because of that fact, this figure was the single biggest peg warmer, at least in my neck of the woods. This figure could still be found at Walgreens like in 2016, 3 years after it was released. And maybe in a beat up package. And the crazy thing is they re-released the exact same figure with a different number in Series 2 in the next year in the Blue Box series. So, what? Oh, by the way, and if you don't know why it's called the Orange Box or Orange Line, it's simply because the packaging was just straight up black and it had a little bit of orange for the writing or for on the back, and the lights that you see in the background image, they're all always orange. All right, so that is why Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi from Revenge of the Sith is the last of the lowest number you can go in this, number 13. So coming in at number 12, we have another figure from that exact same wave, and that is Bespin Luke. Honestly, I love all the 6-inch Black Series figures for the most part. I love Star Wars. I love Black Series. 6-inch is my favorite line simply because they are the most articulated and the most detailed. You can get so much more detail into a figure at that scale. And now that they've blown up, it's like I said, there's like 200 of them now. They're continuing on. It used to be we weren't sure, at the beginning, how far will this go? Are we going to get every character like they did in Kenner days? Or are we just getting like maybe a couple of dozen, is it a novelty thing? We're just going to do a few dozen and then quit. But they were so successful that they just kept on going, and they're actually considered the main line of Star Wars products now. Sorry, vintage collection collectors, but but we all know that. Now, as far as the main line goes, they did start with 3 3/4, so that is the heritage line. That's what they call them, and most people and older collectors might consider that still the main line, but technically Hasbro considers the Black Series the main line right now. And the reason that number 12 is Bespin Luke Skywalker is simply because this figure, he's very stiff. He's mainly the head sculpt, let's put it that way. In the early days, especially, this is before they had the new photoreal printing technology for the faces. A lot of these suffered because of that. And this head sculpt just isn't up to par for the rest of them, especially, the human characters are the hardest ones to do, and you're going to notice that too as I'm looking at my list right now. The majority, or at least 50% of them, the human characters with the human likenesses are on the lower side of my list. So coming in at number 11 is actually another human character, Luke's sister from Return of the Jedi, Princess Leia, in her Jabba's prisoner outfit, otherwise known as Slave Leia, or what they're calling her now, Hutt Slayer. In other words, the metal bikini, what you see in Return of the Jedi, when she's chained up to Jabba the Hutt. And the reason she's number 11 is, I'm going to put a picture in here and just look at her. I might even snap a photo of my own figure if I could find it real quick. But her lower body is like one size, and above the waist, she's much slimmer another size. And it just doesn't mesh. It just doesn't go together. That's my primary thing with her. I know a lot of people, there was a lot of, like I was saying, with the portraits, with their faces, the paint wasn't applied properly, and sometimes the eyes were wonky or not in place where they should be painted on, and a lot of people had a lot of problems with the heads, with the basically because of the face paint. And other than that, I really don't have a lot of problems with this figure, except for the fact that it's like two different people shoved together into one figure. They just don't, it doesn't combine well. And that there's maybe, I don't know, maybe from what I heard was the reasoning for that was the, when they were doing the articulation, they made it a little bit bigger so she can kind of twist her thighs and move them to one side or the other, so you can get that pose where she has her legs to the side sitting next to Jabba the Hutt, or on Jabba's platform. And for some reason, the people working on that and the people who did the other half, or I don't know, something to that effect, they didn't mesh, or they didn't think they could reduce the size, or they'd already spent too much money on it in the first place. And I guess they decided, well, if nobody likes it, maybe we'll come back to it later. And she is one of the no, I was gonna say customers, but she's one of the people that are made the cut for the fan vote for the archive line, which the winner will be announced by the time this video comes up, when a couple days from now, next Monday. This is Friday before, so at least I think it's going to be announced. It should be, because there is a fan vote, or fan Friday, or they moved it to Monday. It's confusing. A Hasbro fan first thing on Monday, but they did say specifically there'll be a lot of stuff and news for the vintage collection. But that is why she's number 11. She does come with some decent accessories, but another thing, the Bausch, or Boosh, or whatever, I call her Bausch, but the long rifle that she comes with, it almost looks like a staff. It's kind of a metallic color and brownish, pinkish, or it's not black. Basically, that's with the Bausch release, they got it right. It's black. But I don't know how or why that happened. Maybe there's another person on the skiff or in Jabba's palace that has one that color, but I don't remember seeing it. Okay, so coming in number 10 is Han Solo. And like I said, the reason that number 10 is Han Solo and he's above Bespin Luke and Slave Leia is because of the sheer amount of accessories. His head sculpt, at this point, Hasbro has always had a very difficult time nailing both technically Luke and Han Solo's likenesses to make them actually look like Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford. But he is a slightly better figure, to me at least, than Bespin Luke and Slave Leia, simply because he comes with all those extra accessories. And he's just, it's a one and done thing. That's the only one you need. But I wouldn't mind if they replaced his head sculpt or changed it to make it better. Okay, so coming in at number 9, we have R2-D2, who comes with also a multitude of accessories. You can take off the little panels on the top of his head. You got where you can put in the lightsaber, his sensor scope, his periscope. You can take off the side panels to put the jet rockets that he had in episode 1. Another one that's kind of a one and done, all in one type thing. You can use him for any movie because he's got all the accessories for, and then he's got the opening panels where you can pull out his claw and his little data link thing. And the only thing is, a lot of people say that he's not quite the right size. He might be a little undersized. And a lot of people want that sculpt to be updated to make it more accurate to his size. And so now we're moving on to Number 8, which is the Clone Trooper. This is just the simple plain Jane or Clone Trooper, plain Jane anyway. Just simple white armor. Nothing more, just the regular armor. No ranking or anything, just your average grunt, your average trooper. And it's not like these are bad. It's just basically when it comes down to like the top 8 or the top 10 or so, these are more like preference over, anyway. He's not as difficult to nail down, I don't think, as some of the other ones that might have a higher rank because they're more detailed. Like Greedo. At number 7, we got Greedo. And this is the first time that they really, at least to me, nailed him. I mean, the 3 3/4 sculpts are pretty good, but this one just looks really good, except for the one problem that he seems to have is he has kind of oblong eyes, and they're purple instead of black. And according to Hasbro, though, they're supposed to look like that. But I don't know anybody that thinks that they should look like that. They look like round glass, domes in the top of his head. And whether they're purple or black or whatever, you could easily change that. If you really don't like the purple, you can make them black. But he only comes with one accessory, technically, is blaster, but it's got a lot of weathering and detail to it. He also has a removable holster, and you can put that blaster into there, and it fits in perfectly. They made his hand to where you could hold the weapon in one hand perfectly fine. And I think he even has a blaster hole mark on the inside, if I remember correctly. I think he does, yeah. But he has a removable vest. If you really wanted to take it off, you could get it off. But I've never taken mine off. But yeah, this is I don't know, but it's the best probably representation of Greedo that we've seen. He's got all the right colors in his jumpsuit. Some people say his shoes are supposed to be different. I'm not sure, but we never actually see his shoes in the movie, I don't think. Maybe a different Rodian, maybe a different version of Greedo. They all look the same, I think. I think they show a couple of them in the special edition version where Jabba the Hutt is out there waiting for Han Solo at the Millennium Falcon on Tatooine when they're at Mos Eisley. But I'm not sure we actually saw the shoes, but it looks good to me. He looks way better than Obi-Wan at number 13. So, okay, so now coming in at number 6, we have Anakin Skywalker, also from Revenge of the Sith. And one of the things I liked about him is they incorporate the soft goods and the plastic pretty seamlessly on the lower half of his tunic so he can move his legs properly. And they're very well, so they can move up and down and get him into different poses. So he's well articulated. He also comes with 2 hets, and this is the only figure in the first series or first year that had 2 hets. One is a blue-eyed version where he's supposed to be Anakin, and then he's more like the Vader version where he has red eyes. So you can kind of, recreate the scene where he technically becomes, I guess, Darth Vader to some extent. Okay, so coming in at the top 5 of my list. Number 5, we have Boba Fett. And I know a lot of people probably think he'd be number 1. And if we were including the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive with Han, he probably would be number 1. But the problem I have with Boba Fett, even though he's very well detailed, he's much more detailed than, say, like Greedo or all these other guys. That's what I'm saying. It comes down to detail where they, for the higher ranking. And I mean, he's a perfect looking figure aesthetically. He looks great. He looks fantastic. He goes for $100 nowadays on the aftermarket, and even his re-release goes for like 60 or 70 sometimes. And the problem with him though is the pockets on the pouches on his belt are so big, and they're made out of such thick, hard rubber plastic that you can't do just a regular kick, just bring his leg all the way up, like the sitting down pose like everybody else. He can't do that. He has very limited leg articulation. So because of that, it's a real bummer that they made him like that. They really should have made a softer plastic with him. And they really screwed it up by not correcting that with his re-release. All they had to do is use a different kind of plastic for that. And so, but just the amount of detail, he's got all his guns, his jetpack, his cape, all the accessories that he needs, but it's just, he suffers from that one problem. And it's a huge one in my opinion, because when I first got him, I was very, very disappointed. The first time I opened him, I threw it down on the ground and said, this is junk. This is total garbage. I was really mad because at this point I thought of Black Series as the ultimate version of each individual character, like Han Solo, where he has the extra hands, the extra belt, the extra blaster, all those extra things. And it just disappointed me because of the quality. But coming in at number 4, a guy that has no problem kicking around, Darth Maul. Now this figure is very well articulated. You can get this figure into any pose. The only problem I had with him is his horns are kind of yellow, like banana yellow. And they're maybe a little bit too thick and round looking. And also he doesn't come apart. You can't pull it apart like to recreate the end scene in episode 1. And I pulled on him multiple times. I was like, it's gotta come apart. It's gotta be like some kind of secret hidden feature or something. Cause these guys are so awesome. They're like the ultimate version of each figure, of each character. It's gotta come apart, right? Oh, and one other thing you're gonna notice that I forgot about when I was doing this list was his lightsaber blades are much thicker than all of the other lightsabers. They're almost twice as thick. And they're shorter too. So that's why he's at number 4 instead of higher up. Number 3 is Luke Skywalker in the X-Wing fighter pilot gear. One of the reasons why this is number 3 is the time that this figure came out. This was probably by far the best version of Luke Skywalker they released, especially in the head area, the head sculpt, the portrait. He's got multiple colors in his hair for highlights, for detail, but technically speaking, I mean, the figure from head to toe looks great, but the only thing that technically is wrong about this figure, he has a weathered jumpsuit. If anywhere in Star Wars you look in there, that flight suit that they give him when he gets up there on the X-Wing, it's completely brand new. There's not a spot on it. No dirt, nothing. Brand new, straight out the package. Here you go. No one's ever worn that thing ever. It's brand spanking new. There's no weathering, and it shouldn't have any weathering to it whatsoever. But that's funny part is most people praise it because of that, how dirty and worn it looks, but it shouldn't look that way at all. 100% completely screen inaccurate when it comes to that. But the helmet looks good. The visor looks great. It's made out of a clear see-through yellow plastic and then painted. So that way you had the clear visor. It looks great in his helmet. The strap fits perfectly. The lightsaber even hangs on his belt. He looks fantastic. And for a long time, I was always going back and forth. Who's my favorite? Luke X-Wing, Darth Maul, R2-D2, or this next guy, the Stormtrooper. Actually, the Sand Trooper. But I put Stormtrooper at number 2 because basically, for the most part, he's kind of the same, pretty much the same thing as the Sand Trooper, but he just doesn't come with the extra gear and he doesn't have the dirt on him. But so that means that coming in at number 1 for the first wave or first series of figures, 2013-14, is the Sand Trooper. He was by far my favorite. He was the one that I wanted the most. I was impressed with Luke X-Wing, but something about the Sand Trooper, seems to be perfect to me because another thing, for some reason, the Stormtrooper's likeness, the helmet, they never get that right. And this is the first time they really got it right, in the right shape and the right size and all that stuff. And he comes with tons of gear, tons of weapons, tons of blasters. And yeah, so I'm running out of space here, so I gotta wrap this up real quick. But yeah, that's my number 1. Click on the next video when it goes up and we'll get into series 2. And then eventually after each one, I'll combine them all together into one cohesive 143 top 100 plus video, which will be long. So that's why I'm doing it in parts right now. All right, guys, thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one.